So why do you want to have a garden? There are a lot of reasons. A lot of reasons why people go into gardening, and there's no right or wrong reason. But I have some suggestions for you depending on what your reasons are. Hi everyone, I'm Aubrey and this is Crybaby Seminole Homestead. The first reason people usually start gardening is because it's fun. There's something enjoyable about planting something and then being able to use it in your own home, whether that's cut flowers or if it's herbs and maybe making some salsas out of your fresh grown tomatoes. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes it's just for enjoyment. And if you're going for enjoyment, then you want to set a healthy budget. How much do you think your garden should cost you? And I mean, that's up to you. But I would budget this under your entertainment if you are gardening for just pure entertainment. Some people garden because they want to grow their food. And the reason why they're growing their food is because they want something better or something different than what they can get from the grocery store. Sometimes that might be because you want to make sure that there aren't pesticides, or it's non-GMO, or something of maybe it's a variety that's more nutritional or nutritious. And for that way, if you're trying to garden for the nutritional value as it being better than what you can get at the grocery store, then I would say to do research and make sure that the varieties of things that you're growing are going to be superior to what you get at the grocery store. I would recommend places like My Gardener and Baker Creek Seeds to find really nutritious, prolific fruits and vegetables and leafy greens that you can grow from home that are going to be better from the grocery store. Almost everything you grow from home is going to be better than the grocery store. I would start with things like herbs, because they're so expensive, but that's a different reason. Definitely growing your own garden is going to be nutritionally superior. You can control the inputs. I like to use a lot of organic methods. I'm not an organic gardener per se because I don't have that classification, but I like to grow in a beyond organic method. So chop and drop, if you just take leaves and you're, just composting in place. Chop and drop is when you take leaves and things like, even if it's like fallen leaves, and you put it down on the soil and it breaks down and it feeds the plants. It provides them with minerals and so forth. So that's a great thing to do. You're going to get better food from something you grow at home than you do at the grocery store. It's going to be nutritionally more dense because you are controlling what goes into those plants. Now, sunshine, obviously, that's how they make their actual food through photosynthesis, but you can control whether or not you're using harmful pesticides. If you're, using certain methods that will be healthier, you can control whether or not there's disease. The spread of pathogens, you can make sure that you have your garden in an area where there aren't things like rodents or pets and things like that. You have to be, careful and so forth. But you've heard of those different recalls from romaine lettuce that happens like every couple years or so. You'll hear about there being a recall because of contamination. So you can control the situation, and you're aware if there are things going wrong and what you need to be aware of and what to be careful of, because it's your own environment. You know if something has leached into the soil because you're planting in an area that you're familiar with. So growing your plant garden because of having healthier plants, having healthier food is a wonderful reason. Educational purposes. Some people like to grow a garden because of natural curiosity, because of wondering how something grows, having questions about things. Maybe there's people who are homeschooling who are using this as an educational opportunity. You can use this to learn about biology, ecology, so many ologies. You can use this to learn about math. You can use this for kids to learn about like graphing, growth rates of certain plants. You can look at germination rates. You can set up complete experiments like, will this type of plant grow better in this kind of soil or in this kind of soil? In a sunny position or a shady position? Will plants from the store grow better than seedlings I started that are the same size if I plant them at the same time? And all of the other variables are the same. Well, this seed company's seeds germinate better than that seed company's seeds. Which one will have the more superior plant? And you have to quantify it, like which will produce the most fruit, which will produce the most leafy greens, which will have the healthiest plant overall, which one will have the least amount of disease, and so forth. So you could use it for educational purposes. This can like keep going and going and going and going. And it could be just for fun. It could be because you're interested and you're engaged and you're curious about how things grow, where things grow, when things grow, and maybe even trying to see the world through your garden. Because I know for myself, I can't afford to go on a world tour, a world vacation, but I can bring that world vacation to me. I can plant something from Mexico. I can plant something from Europe. And that's my own prerogative on what I want to grow in my yard. I don't just grow native plants. I do grow native plants, but not just native plants. And I'm very careful. I don't want things to become invasive, and I'm very, aware and thoughtful of that, and you should be too. But it's a very educational and not a brick and mortar square type experience, but you learn a lot from having a garden. A lot of people ask me if I save money on my garden, and the answer is an honest no. I don't save money on my garden. I spend almost all of my spending money on my garden. A lot of people get their hair done, they get their nails done, they buy a lot of different clothes. Like I basically, at the beginning of the school year, I bought like a bunch of different black jeans because I don't have to make a decision, and they were cheap. And it looks professional enough. And I haven't bought like an outfit and I can't remember how long. I don't get my nails done. I don't get my hair done. I don't buy myself jewelry. I mean, I think, like these are probably $2. Like, what I spend my money on is my garden. But you can save money by growing a garden, and I'll tell you how. Growing a garden can be very frugal. You can do it on nothing. Basically, and I'm sure you've seen lots of videos, but you basically can grow what you get at the grocery store. So I've planted so many fruit trees from the seeds I've gotten in my fruit, especially whenever I buy organic. Sometimes I'll cut open an apple and I'll see the seeds are actually already sprouting. So I will plant fruit trees from seed, and don't knock it. I know you're not going to get exactly that same apple. Scientifically, apples are produced through sexual reproduction, which means you're going to have some traits from the mother and some from the father plant. So the parent plants are going to have contributed their own DNA to the mix. You're going to get a little bit of both parents, and it might be better, the same-ish, or not as good. It's likely it's not going to be as good, but it's a free apple tree. You can regrow your produce, like with a carrot. Now, a lot of people are a little confused. There's a misconception. If you have a little bit of the tip of the top of the carrot where the leaves came out of, if you keep a little chunk of that and you put it in water, it will grow greens. Carrot greens are edible. They're very high in calcium, and you can eat that. But you could also, once it's growing, plant it and let it go to seed, and then you'll have free seeds. You can do just about the same thing with like onions. So if you have green onions and you cut the stem and leaves off and use them, and you keep the little white part, the bottom that has a little bit of the root, put that in water and it will regrow the greens, and you can cut them as well. But when they're growing, you can also plant them, let them go to seed, and now you have free seeds for the onions. You can do that same thing with the big bulb onions. You're going to keep the bottom part, okay, and put that in water, or you can direct plant it. I have a little bit better success if I start it in water first, and once I see the green coming up, I plant it in the soil, and you can get greens. I have had a few onions that were maybe a little bit like they're sprouting already, and I went ahead and planted those in the ground, and I got tons and tons of seeds. So that's a wonderful way to get free seeds, is by go ahead and plant one of your bulbs, and that will give you seeds. Any mature produce that you get from the grocery store, whether that's berries or like tomatoes and peppers, if it's mature. So like sometimes you'll get an immature fruit and get the seeds and plant them and they'll grow. But it might not be as healthy, because it's kind of like having an underdeveloped animal having a baby before it's old enough, right? So some of those babies don't turn out very well. So the tricky part is knowing if it's mature, right? So if you have like a bell pepper, the yellow, orange, and red, those are mature. Green bell peppers are not mature. If they were left on the plant, they would have changed color. I have planted some green bell peppers before, and I don't remember, it was a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure I remember that some of them sprouted. It's way better to grow ones that are mature though. So like if you like green bell peppers, enjoy yourself. But if you have green bell peppers and you have red bell peppers, and I'd save the ones from the red ones because they are mature. The yellow and orange are also mature. So if you save those seeds and you plant them, they do grow. Now, I am not really successful with bell peppers in my zone, Washington State, Zone 8, but you can try it. Bell peppers are really beautiful plants, by the way. It looks really great in the landscape, and free seeds are free seeds. When you save those seeds, I would start them really early. Peppers take a long time when you're first planting them to sprout and to get big enough to transplant even. Like I planted some in like March, and they're like this big. They look great, they're healthy, and luckily they're perennial. So if you plant your peppers in containers and you bring them in, or you dig them up and you transplant them and cut them back really good, and you just keep them alive, they should produce for a couple of years. Most of my peppers have produced, if I brought them in, produced for 3 years. I'm sure some people can keep them going longer than that, but I've been able to keep them going for 3 years. So tomatoes are also perennial. So if you save seeds from your tomatoes, especially if these are organic, or at least you know they're not hybrid, like Romas should be pretty good. And if they're hybrid, you know what? You're going to have something. You're going to get tomatoes out of a tomato seed. It just might not be exactly what you're expecting. So what I like to do, there's different ways you can seed save from your tomatoes. You can squeeze a little bit of the tomato seeds out and onto a plate and let them dry. That works. They're going to stick to the plate. You're going to have to take them off a little bit when they're dry. It may take a little piece of the plate with it. It doesn't have to be pretty, but that works. I've done that for many years. There's also a way you can ferment the seeds. So what you do simply is squeeze that tomato and let the seeds collect into like a little cup of water. And it's going to get gross. You're going to have a little bit of rot, and just separate the rot from the seeds as it goes through, and then dump out the seeds onto like a paper plate like before. And basically what this does is it removes a seed inhibiting membrane that's around your seed. And when those seeds dry, they won't stick to the plate, and they'll be really pretty, just like when you get them out of a seed packet. So I like the fermentation process. It's not pretty, and it does take up a little space, and it can look a little bit gross. Let your family know that it's not trash. But that's a great way to save seeds, and it's free. So you could actually do that and still eat the tomato. So just squish it into a cup, get the seeds, use your tomato like you normally would, and you got seeds and food. Another thing I like to plant from the grocery store are all different kinds of beans. So my favorite thing to do is to go to like a bulk area where they have bulk seeds, and then you choose which you like. Some like co-ops and stuff, they might have some kind of specialty beans like tiger eye or orca beans. Those are really fun to grow. They're really beautiful as well. I first started growing beans from the grocery store when I was prepping, and I had a bunch of food I was going through, and I came across a bag of dried garbanzo beans or chickpeas. They're called both things. Chickpeas and garbanzo beans are the same thing. And I came across a dry bag of them, and I thought they were expired by like 3 years. And I was like, you know what? I bet you these are still good, but I've got other food that's fresher. So I'll use the fresh food. Let me go ahead and sprout these, and I can use these either to plant a crop or as a cover crop, because beans are nitrogen fixers. So you can plant them and let them fertilize your soil. So I planted the garbanzo beans that were like 3 years old, past expiration. It might have been even 5 years. It was really old. And they sprouted and they produced a crop for me. And so you can actually eat garbanzo beans when they're really immature, fresh from the pod. If you ever go to places like Winco in the Mexican produce area, in the far left corner of the store, there's a whole bulk section that has a scooper and bags, and you can scoop up your own fresh garbanzo beans in the pods. You pop them out of the pod, and they're green, and they taste really refreshing. I would recommend not having too many, unless it might upset your tummy. But they're edible that way, and when they're really immature. Or you let them dry, and then you can either save them for seed, or you can cook them. And so garbanzo beans are a great thing to grow from your dry beans. And I didn't get anything special. It was literally just a 99-cent, I think it was at the time, 99-cent bag, 1 pound bag of dry garbanzo beans. That's a great way to get your seeds. If you have a small budget that you are because you're trying to save money, if you have a small budget to buy seeds with, I would go to a seed vendor like My Gardener, because he has seeds for like $2 a packet, and you can get lots of different kinds of seeds. And so you get more different varieties. Sometimes the seed count isn't as much as My Gardener, so you might get a smaller number, like a smaller packet. It's cheaper. So I kind of sometimes will put those two tabs side by side, and I'll go back and forth. Okay, well, I want this kind of bean. Which vendor has more seeds for the same price? So if I only had like $20 to spend on my garden, I would go to My Gardener, because you can get like almost 10 packs for that price. Now there is tax, obviously, but you can get a lot of different types of seeds for that. And if you learn to seed save, it can be a big savings. If I was looking for planting one kind of crop or 1 or 2 kinds of crops, and I wanted just a ton of seeds, I go to Baker Creek. Another way to save money. Oh, also Nikitovka has good prices as well, but I buy those just for like the novelty, like pretty stuff. When I'm growing something to eat, I want to know exactly where it came from. I want it to be really tangible of where those seeds were grown and stuff. So I really trust Baker Creek and My Gardener. And if you're just trying to grow flowers and that kind of stuff, buying seeds with a really small budget, I'm gonna say short budget, a small budget, Dollar Tree is great when they do have seeds in stock. And there's some varieties that I would recommend over others. If saving money on your garden is your #1 priority, I would say to plant things that are abundant. Also, things that cost a lot. Herbs are very expensive. And like some of the first things I grew were rosemary, lavender, thyme, oregano, sage, all of those perennial herbs, and mint too. Oh my gosh. Mint, lemon verbena, lemon balm. All of those types of herbs are so prolific and long-lived, and it's just amazing. Like, you need to grow those things, and then you don't have to even think about it anymore. Occasionally water them, like occasionally weed them, occasionally harvest them, okay? But grow your herbs. That's the best bang for your buck. A lot of things will grow from cuttings. So if you have a friend or family member who has a large established rosemary plant or whatever, or sage or oregano, ask them if you can take a few cuttings, because those things grow really well from cuttings, and you can just put them in a glass of water, they'll grow roots, you plant it, and now you've got herbs. And if you keep doing that, you'll have herbs for life. Every part of the garden costs something. The soil costs something, the containers cost something, the seeds cost something, but you can avoid those costs. You can either, like I said, use seeds that you actually get from the produce that you eat, especially if it's organic. You can take cuttings from food that you get from the grocery store. You can regrow things. You can grow them just to get the seeds, like during its second year of life. You can ask friends and family if you can have a few cuttings from their plants, and you give them a few cuttings from yours. You can join a seed and plant swap group where you're trading seeds and plants. I've been part of many groups before. I used to send out seeds in the mail and get seeds back. I probably won't do that anymore just because of postage, but it's still cheaper to spend a few dollars on stamps and get a bunch of different kinds of seeds than it would be buying a packet of seeds. So it's kind of fun. Sometimes the person on the other end is a little bit more generous and a little bit less generous. It kind of depends. So it's more for fun and community when I do that. But when you go to the free plant swaps where you're trading your plants and seeds, you like leave them out and then people come around and get what they want, and you do the same thing. Sometimes people arrange ahead of time, like, I'm going to give this to this person, they're going to give me that from that person. But it all kind of depends on the situation. But those free plant swap groups are really awesome, and I recommend them to anybody. If you don't have a garden spot place, almost everybody has room for a few containers. You can grow a lot of herbs and leafy greens in a few pots. And if you need more space than that and you don't have it, check to see if any of the churches around your area, if they have a community garden. Some don't charge anything, and some charge a very small fee, or they might charge your labor. Like maybe they have a work time where everybody helps one weekend a month to clean up the garden or something like that. So check to see if the churches in your area have community gardens, and if it costs anything. And if you don't have that money, maybe you could ask them, hey, I don't have the $10, $20 for the community garden. Can I offer my labor instead? When we're talking about gardening in containers, you can use all sorts of things, from the really pricey stuff down to stuff that's just free. I've planted things in yogurt containers, sour cream containers, whipped cream containers, anything that came with a container that was in the fridge, rinsed it out, made some holes in the bottom, and now it's a pot. I reuse nursery containers. Even some nurseries will have an area, like the East Bay Urban Farm and Garden, something like that I did a video on recently. You can check out some of my other videos. They have an area towards like the exit parking lot where they have containers for free. They actually have a sign that says like you're free to have these. Those are great, and then you can use them and reuse them, and it's wonderful. You can make seed tags for free. One lady that participates in my seed swaps uses she reuses blinds, like for your windows, the white window blinds. Those fall apart all the time. Those make wonderful. They've actually been the best seed tags I've used ever, were those repurposed blinds for seed and plant labels. Some people like to grow a garden because it's a way to be a prepper and to be more self-sufficient, being more ready in case there's an issue with the food supply. And in that case, grow everything. Grow absolutely everything that's edible and medicinal that you possibly can get your hands on. If you're going to be a prepper, you want to grow flowers, but you want to grow the edible type, things that have medicinal and actual culinary value. So if you're growing for prepping, then you just want to grow as much as you possibly can. I would highly recommend things that are the most nutrient dense, like potatoes. And then you kind of pair up from that. It's like, okay, well, if you're going to eat a potato, what would you eat it with? I would eat it with beans and tomatoes. And then you think of maybe you're going to grow a salsa garden, onions, oregano, cilantro, whatever it is you're going to grow, whatever it is you're going to eat, and you want the most nutrient dense crops possible. Like sunflowers are great. Corn is hit or miss. Honestly, if I was going to grow a corn, I would grow a dent corn. But honestly, it takes up so much space, and you get usually 1 ear of corn per stalk, and that's like almost a foot of space. So I would actually do potatoes, big time, cherry tomatoes, all kinds of herbs, kale, all kinds of leafy greens. I'm trying out some new varieties of things like perennial herbs. I do love things like rhubarb. Nutritionally, they're not going to give you a lot of calories for how much space they take up, but anything that doesn't require a lot of effort from you, that especially perennials, you guys, because perennials, if you're a prepper, perennials don't require as much work. They seem to like have a life of their own and a purpose of their own. They just keep going even without your effort and your input. So I like to grow perennials even when they're not super calorically dense. Apples, growing an apple tree, a couple apple trees, some grapevines, like diversify what you have, but plant everywhere you can possibly plant. And for every ornamental that you plant, think of, is there some quality to that plant? Is it taking up space that you would rather have for something else? Now, if I have other spaces, I'm not going to get rid of ornamentals until I run out of every possible space, every nook and cranny that I can use for planting something that's edible or medicinal. I'm going to use all those spaces first before I start to pull out things that are ornamental, because ornamental plants have value, even if it's to convince other people that you have an ornamental garden and distract them from the fact that you're growing food. Also, it's pretty. It draws in pollinators and wildlife. And why get rid of it if it's not competing with something else? So once you run out of space and you have not a single square inch left for anything else that's edible or medicinal or whatever, then I might start potting up and giving away or trading my ornamentals for something that's edible. So I've given you multiple things, multiple reasons. What is your motive for gardening? And I hope that I have a lot of these reasons. I'm gardening for all of those reasons. And I hope you are too. Be good, be sweet. Go garden if you want to eat. I'll see you next time. Pop a comment below. What was your favorite tip? And what tips do you have to share?